Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Matrexit discussion group call for tactical sovereignty. We did a main call several nights ago with Michael Joseph. We were discussing a American state national in court and going over the presentation that they were making. And it's really not about dissing anybody or anything like that, but there is just a ton of very, very bad information out there that won't help you at all. It'll actually uh, show the court that you are very uneducated as to how things are operated and what's going on. And they'll just keep moving forward with the system, set you the next court date, and ignore everything. And that's down in the description box below. As well, down there, there's a link to our WordPress. There's a link to the group. And there's also a link to the original video that we were talking about. So I'd recommend people go and check that out. I always tell people, when I first started researching things and looking for stuff, say for instance, if it was YouTube, you go down to the comments, you look to see what's being talked about now, what's being mentioned. You go to the description box, see if there's any additional links where you can find more info at down in the description box. Is very often the authors of a production that's been put out will go and they'll throw additional stuff down there to help you out. They'll give you some references, some other things to look at. And I'll just say, as far as that goes, one of the main things that gets sent to me a lot, and I will do an episode on this coming up, is regarding affidavits. I get sent affidavits all the time. And, I apologize to these people because very often these aren't even affidavits. They don't even meet the criteria for an affidavit. And they will also just simply get ignored. I recommend to people, when you see somebody posting some sort of format for an affidavit that you just add your name to or something like that, go and research what an affidavit is. Research what the opening comments need to be, what the body of it looks like, what the closing that you're at looks like on it. I had somebody send me one a few weeks ago, and just because it was a letter that was notarized, they thought it was an affidavit. No. Even though it says the word affidavit on there, doesn't make it an affidavit. So we need to pay a little closer attention to all of these things that are out there that are doing nothing really but sending people in the wrong direction or sending people down rabbit holes. Like I mentioned, go check out that series I did on the rabbit holes that are presented to everybody, because they're not there to help you. They're actually there to cause you to stumble, and that's exactly what they do. So in a few weeks, I will be coming up with a series on doing the affidavit. I did one several years ago, and it's really good. It's on the Talkshoe, and that link as well is down in the description box below. You can go back a couple years ago and take a look at that. But I'm going to add to that and help people really wrap their mind around it a lot better, because it's not that complicated. It's actually very, very simple. But like anything else, there are certain elements that are required for it to be accepted and viewed as what you want it to be seen as. And so people need to really pay attention to what those elements are and make sure those are contained within your document. There's a whole plethora of different info you can find here on that Talkshoe link below. Ton of stuff in both the original Tactical Sovereignty group and in the current group. And I recommend people utilize those tools. Those are tools there for you. I started up basically just to show people the journey that I was taking and the things that I was doing along the way. And you can use that little message bar at the top, a little search bar, and use it just like any other search engine. And put in a keyword like the word affidavit or do-it-yourself affidavit, DIY. You'll pull up that info there. And so it's kind of combined everything in one spot, kind of a quick and easy place to find what you're looking for, what you need, because I know that was not available when I started my journey. So I thought, what better thing to do than to make my journey accessible to everybody else? And I highly recommend making use of that. This is a short one tonight. I recommend people check out the episode that we did a couple nights ago. I did with Michael Joseph on State National in Court. Like I said, that's down in the description box here on YouTube, and you'll also see the original video for that. So you can sit and maybe preview that first and then go and listen to our dissertation on comments that were being made in court that day and what effect they did or may not have had on the system. I've got a hand raised. Let me see what it is here. Sid, Leo, how you doing, brother?
Hey, how are you, Brian?
Good. What's happening? I haven't seen you around in a while.
I know it's been a journey. It's been a journey. I did reach out to you, I guess, a couple of days ago about my comments, and so it's in reference to your video. I did watch your video. I was actually on there, and then I watched the replay of it as well. And the one thing that I completely understand, because you guys have been in this game for quite a while. A lot of people have been in this game for quite a while. But I also understand where that person, I had some compassion for that person as well, because she's like most people who have started. And what I mean by that is I did the same thing. I started with the and I told you this before, I started with the Anna thing, and it led me to go down another path as well. But you have to start somewhere.
Okay.
You think you're doing all the right things, when in actuality you're not doing all the right things, because you have to follow multiple people, multiple avenues. There are multiple highways to the same path of freedom. You just got to figure out which one suits you. You know, I've heard so many things, and I appreciate you. You had a link on Facebook where somebody mentioned you in a video, and I watched that whole video. I forgot the guy's name, the preacher or the pastor or something like that, Pastor DeWay. Right. And he mentioned you resigning your position. But then he goes on to say, hey, maybe you want to accept it. And I was like, that goes against everything that I was taught. You know what I mean? So there are multiple avenues. So I kind of when I saw the comments, I was like, hold on. We it's quick for us to say that this person is an idiot or whatever, but nobody really knows where this person actually lies in their study, and they just want to be able to utilize what they've learned to be free. Sometimes you have to do that. You have to hit the wall in order to learn and say, okay, this didn't work. I need to go back to the drawing board. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, as far as saying maybe accept that position, well, you've got to stop and figure out, how much wiggle room are you going to have? How much decision making are you going to be afforded? Are you going to be able to negotiate that position? Right. Yeah. And I really don't think you would be.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, because I saw your your response to that, and that's the first thing I was like, hold on, why would you want to accept that position when you've kind of been forced in that position, and all the things that came along with being forced in that position? Why would you want to accept it? Because you know how it is when you go to work, you have to negotiate your pay. Well, who are you going to negotiate with when you start sending all these documents to people and finding out it's a lot of work in that. So it's best to just step away from it altogether, in my mind. So, but I just wanted to mention that. I wanted to mention the video, and I appreciate you doing that video. There again, like I said, for me, I had some compassion with her, because I started that same path, and it led me to other paths, and I'm still studying. It's just so many people, so many things, and at some point you just have to let your heart lead you in the right direction. So I yield on that one. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, and what happens is a lot of this various info that people come across, they don't know anything about the judicial system or the legal realm or how things were put together. And so they have no way of really knowing if it's true or false or not. You've got to go and take each one of those little elements and research them out to see how much truth there is or is not in what's being stated. And as far as, like, for instance, accepting that path or accepting the position as agent, there's something else to think about as well. And that is that there was never an offer made for you to accept that position. It's something that people just kind of step into unknowingly. And because what it really is, it's being an agent for the organization that the state created. And that organization was created with its registration, which was that certificate of live birth. And they tell you that in the UCC 9 video that I show as well. And so, I mean, even in the beginning stages, people are told not to use a certificate of live birth as identification, and that it doesn't meet the criteria of identification. It has no photo with it. All right. And this is where I kind of cross paths with people like Christopher James from Canada, because he has a video out that's been very popular. It's called A Planned Trespass. And that was one of the first videos I had seen as well. And things kind of sounded like it made sense, but not quite. And so when I got in and started researching things and found out what was really happening, it was like, wait a minute, this trespass that is going on isn't on the state's part. Anybody can create an organization and name it anything you want. Just because it looks like it has a name resembling yours doesn't mean it has anything to do with you. And so technically, by you going and using a document that you're told not to use as identification and being a representative or a spokesman, as I've heard a judge say, or, an agent for it, technically, since that's something they created, who's doing the trespass? You are. And the person that's doing the trespass is the one that's going to end up holding all the liability. They didn't invite you to come in. There's no offer of payment or anything that's going to behoove you to be in that position. So you have to really stop and think, like I said, who's making the trespass here? You are, because it's their property that you were told not to use. Now, there's things like, say, applying for a driver's license, where it is accepted. All right. Yeah, that's kind of a trick to get you in. And I've had many people contact me and tell me, oh, that's the only thing my state will accept. I'm like, oh, really? What state are you from? I'll get back with you in 5 minutes. I get back with them and give them a whole list of things that are accepted. Generally, I know many of the states are like the state of Florida. They'll have 2 or 3 lists of things that you can use, and you're required to pick 2 things from those lists and provide those 2 things when you're going and applying for a driver's license. And on the section where it says, like, certificate of live birth or birth certificate, it also lists 3 or 4 other things. That's not the only thing in that group. So no, that's just a ploy to kind of get you in, and all of a sudden you're accepting a position that you didn't realize that you're holding. And a lot of people would probably kick and scream and say lack of full disclosure or whatever. The problem is that we need to realize, and we need to teach our offspring this as well. We need to realize that when you grow up, anytime your signature or your autograph or whatever you want to call it is required, doesn't matter what you call it, it still looks the same on the piece of paper. Whenever that is required of you, you are entering into a contractual obligation, period, or accepting a position, like I said, as agent. That's even listed on information for driver's licenses that I've seen for multiple states, that you agreed to be the agent for service of process, notice and demand regarding that driver's license or any vehicle that is related to it or that it's registered with. So, but what we don't go in, we don't read the fine print. We just want to do what's quick and easy. That's the way most people are. We just want to sign that dotted line and, you know, get the keys to the car, the keys to the new house, whatever the case may be, without doing our own due diligence. So the disclosure issue really is a non-issue. Disclosure is required, but it's only required if you demand it. If you don't demand it, they don't have to give it to you. There's been some situations, like with mortgages, where the brokers have listed multiple things now regarding more disclosure, but people don't sit and read those. I know when I purchased a home, it was 72 pages that you had to sign. Well, you go in there to the closing table, you just want to sign it, get the keys, get home so you can start moving because you got a lot of work ahead of you. When technically you should probably be sitting there and going through item by item in all of those pages and wanting full disclosure on each one of those pages that you have to sign or initial.
Now, Brian,
But
just to that point though, how often do you know? And knowing what I know now, if I was to purchase a home, because I have one now, I did the same exact thing. You get excited, your first home, you get excited. Oh, I'm gonna move in. But now, let me ask you this: if you get that contract and it is 72 pages, are they willing to let you hold that contract for a day or two to go through every single thing that you need to go through and strike out or make changes to any and every single thing that you see in that contract? Well, are they willing to do that?
if they want to close the deal, they should be willing to do it. And you should be allowed actually to take those pages home and sit and go over them for, a few days or a week, whatever,
Right.
and bring them back.
Yeah, because you do have 72 hours from the time that you sign any document to go back and make any changes.
Right.
So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. We need to stop worrying about how fast we want to get the deal done and start thinking about how quick they want to get the deal done and use the position that they're in as leverage to help ourselves and aid ourselves. And if I had to do all over again, I'll tell you what, well, and when I do, what's going to happen is I won't be going to a big money lender if I need one. What's going to happen is I'm going to go to a private banker and have everything done through a private banker because you have much, much better success rate long term. You don't have to worry about any little tiny detail that gets messed up going and screwing over your entire contract. People don't realize, you know, say for instance, you have a 15 or 30-year mortgage. And this is the same thing with even a credit card. All right. If you are, according to them, even a day late in a payment, guess what's happened to that contract? You have just voided the contract because you haven't fulfilled your end of the bargain on it. And I see many times, even like credit cards, all of a sudden somebody might have had a 6 or 7% interest rate. They miss a payment, and all of a sudden they get something in the mail that is an addendum to the contract. Most people don't read it, but it's changing them from having a 6 to 7% interest rate to all of a sudden having maybe an 18% interest rate. And it's all a result of just missing one payment or being late on one payment. And there's also something called universal default. And universal default would mean that, let's say you have that happen with one credit card, okay? Guess what? All the other credit cards, if they're paying attention and want to look, and that they see that you missed a payment or were late on a payment, they consider that as being negative towards your agreement with them, even though it's a totally separate contract. They see that as a defect in your ability to repay. And they can even go through universal default and change the agreement that you made with them. So this isn't only affecting one credit card, it can potentially affect all of them. And if even, say, for instance, you're late on the payment for a mortgage, not only can that change the agreement or the contract with the mortgage, but guess what? Remember those credit cards I was talking about? You can do the same thing with those as well, because they can see that as a defect in your ability to pay, which can potentially harm them. We have to realize, I found something here probably about half an hour ago or so. I thought I lost it. I thought it had been scrubbed from the internet. Maybe it had been, but I had a copy of it myself, and it was an attorney, a kind of hidden camera situation. And he's saying, you know, we run the country. We run the country because we make the laws, and we make the laws so they're advantageous to us, meaning they make the laws so it benefits them. So at the end of the day, who's getting paid? It's not you, it's them. And so with every contract in the system that you're getting into, guess who wrote it? They did. And they wrote it because eventually they are the ones that are going to be benefiting from it. They aren't running it because they care about you and want to help you out or help Joe Sixpack out. No, they're taking care of their own business, period. The main problem is we're not paying enough attention to our business. I think I'll wrap it up. And I can tell everybody every week, learn who you really are, where you're really from, where you're really at. You do that, and you'll avoid a lot of these mistakes. Good night, guys.